I'm Kristen Ciccolini.
And I'm Janine Malone.
And you're listening to It's Just a Phase. Each week, we'll bring you inspiring and informative conversations about honoring the different cycles of life, covering topics of health and wellness, moon phases, astrology, witchcraft, feminism, and more, so you can superpower your well-being and live your best life.
We are living our best lives.
Trying.
Literally clawing my way to best life.
Doing our best is kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the way to think about it. We're doing our best.
How are you all doing? We want to know how you're feeling.
Tell us.
I mean, I feel like that's like an insulting question at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How are you surviving is probably the better question.
Yes. Yeah. Tell us if you found anything that's felt like a nice, I don't know, has made you feel empowered or has helped you disconnect, or I don't know, just like what are your coping mechanisms right now?
Can you
Please
tell we're
us.
struggling?
Yeah. Yes.
At least we have each
are.
other. I really look forward to talking to you every week because it does give me a little like ray of light in my day.
Oh, me too. Totally agree. Just like, especially this year, like obviously here we are, we're still kind of like isolating and, not seeing people as often as possible. So I think connecting with you and then also just having the space to like do this podcast has been a real help.
Yeah, definitely. I know this is going to sound, well, not really silly, but I mean, it's been pretty cold, but the last couple days while we're recording this have been really nice. But yesterday I just took a walk in the middle of the day, which like I don't do often, especially when it gets cold, but it was just nice to just stop and just go outside and feel the warmth. And then I also made myself a nice tea.
Ooh.
Well, it's kind of like, I mean, now that it's fall, it's still nice to have something that is a little bit summery
Yeah.
and floral. It makes you feel, a little bit of sunshine from the inside out. I did chamomile and rose and milky oats. I just happened to
Ooh.
have this combination in my little closet apothecary.
Oh my God,
the
that
thing,
sounds so nice.
the things I collect. But that felt
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it felt really nice to enjoy that. So if you have those lying around, it's a good it's a good combo. Have you been
That
doing
sounds great.
anything that makes you feel somewhat good?
No.
Screaming into your pillow. I mean, that works
Yeah.
too.
Honestly, it's so silly, but like I've been getting into this habit with a couple of my best friends where instead of texting or even doing like phone calls or Zoom calls, we send like voice notes back and forth to each other. And it's been like such a restorative practice because like I don't know, I haven't really seen obviously a lot of my friends and some of my friends who live like on the other side of the country, and it's just been so nice to like have this weird space to be like not just kind of like the checking in, like how's your day going, how are you, but like I don't know, getting a voice note from one of your friends who's like super enthusiastic, like oh my God, did you read this article, like, and like hearing it like that has been truly the only light for me is like remember, I don't know, just like finding ways to feel like a little bit more connected to people and talking about things beyond just like how are you holding up, like
Yeah.
trust me there's a lot of that in there, but it's felt really nice of like the things that you would have talked about if you like were getting drinks or something, just like
Yeah. Oh,
shows
yeah,
you're
that's like
watching. And
it doesn't have the same kind of pressure as FaceTime where you have to like not look like a troll when you've been inside for like 5 days at a time.
right,
Or,
yes,
just having to kind of be on. It's like
yeah,
get to it when you get to it and you are excited when you get to it. That's kind of nice. I like
right,
that idea.
yeah. And I forget where it's, God, I heard about it for like, I forget where it was years ago, but I was listening to some psychologist talk, and It was probably on a podcast, literally don't remember where, but they're talking about how like the more often you communicate with people, the more you find you have to say. And like that really has always stuck with me where like sometimes I find it challenging to like, have meaningful conversations with people who I haven't seen in a while, whether it's like my parents or, it just becomes like, how are you? How's work? How's the car
Mhm.
running? And you're just like, it's fine. It's all fine. Like, but when you talk regularly, you like get into the minutia of people's lives, which like for me as a Cancer is like deeply important. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know like about your dog and about your dreams and what you ate for lunch and like every innermost thought of everyone I love all the time. No big deal. And so it's just been nice to like, I don't know, like it sounds so corny, but like hear my friends like laugh and like the way that they say things, whereas like over text it just doesn't feel like that, you know?
Mhm.
So that's my little
Yeah.
practice that's
That's
sustaining
important
me.
too for all of us working from home now, and we have very limited interaction with people. Just like keeping up with the trivial kind of stuff is
Yeah.
probably really nice. And yeah, because I'm not like a big chat texter, where like people are using chat like instant messenger. Like I don't know. I only do that really with
Yeah.
like my sisters and then my friend Crystal, and that's like basically it, where you just like go back and forth all day long.
Right.
um, but what was my point here? I mean, I guess like I like that stuff because I also don't really like small talk. So yeah, like that. How are you? How's it going? It's like everything's
Right.
fucked. How do you think I'm doing? Let's talk about like trashy TV or something.
Right, exactly. Where like, I don't know. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I'm rewatching Desperate Housewives.
Me too. I've
No,
been
you are
okay.
not.
Yes, I've been watching it in Hulu. I'm in the second season now. I mean, I
Oh
watched
my
it back in the
God.
day when it was coming out week by week, but now it's like this show is just ridiculous and I love it.
It's so insane. It's giving me so much joy. I'm in season 5. I've been really crushing it.
So good.
And I don't know, just like stupid stuff like that where I'm like, yeah, like it feels good to talk about that. It feels good to like recommend podcasts to people that aren't depressing. It's just a
Mm.
nice space. It's kind of like I don't know. It
Do you want to
feels
know?
good.
Do you want to know a secret?
Yes.
I have the Desperate Housewives cookbook.
Are you fucking serious?
My
Wait,
friend gave it to me as a gift for my birthday years and years ago, and it was like a jokey gift because um, what's her name?
Brie?
No, the one who can't cook. Why can't I think of her name right now?
Oh, Susan?
Susan.
Terry
Yeah.
Hatcher?
Susan. Yeah. You know how like her thing is like margaritas. She can't do anything else. So
Yes.
so my friend and I, like back in college, we would always have margaritas all the time. And so she bought this book because she knew I loved Desperate Housewives and there was a great margarita recipe in it. So it was like all that. But she gave it to me like kind of as a joke. But the recipes in it are actually pretty good.
Oh my fucking god, I'm literally obsessed with that. I also can't I just feel like it's such a weird like it doesn't really have a lot of like cultural significance at all,
Mm.
but so I'm just really happy to know that we're both watching.
It's just such
Like
a good show. I mean, good as in like mindless, and the storylines are just so ridiculous. But
right. It's exactly how I feel about Riverdale. Like let's be honest.
ooh, I
Just
haven't watched that.
oh my god. Season 1 of Riverdale is so fucking good. If anyone is listening, well, actually, I would just be curious to know if people agree with that or not, but I love it. It's just like a soap opera, like a kid, like a teenage soap opera. It's so
Mm,
stupid and
like
so
Buffy.
good. 10
Buffy
out of
was
10
the one.
recommend.
I've been
But we're not
watching.
here to talk about TV.
Oh, okay.
Or no, tell me.
I just could talk about this stuff all day. No, I've been watching Pen 15. Did you watch that?
Oh, yes. I haven't
The
started
second
season 2.
season. Oh, the second season's out now, and I watched it all over the last couple days.
Oh my god.
There's actually one episode where they um it's like called Wiccan. I don't know, something Wiccan related on the title. But yeah, they find this
Oh my
this
god.
woman's business card in a tree and her last name is like Wiccany or something like that. So
Oh
they
my god.
start like doing all this crazy like witch stuff and scare all their friends with their like pieces of their hair and
Oh
It's
my
so
God.
funny. Anyway, yeah,
I
anyway,
need.
not this podcast, but that is, like, that show is the most accurate depiction of our middle school years that I've ever seen.
Oh, 100%. It's actually, like, a little bit hard to watch at points because 'cause you're just like,
It is
"Oh."
so cringy, but I
Yeah,
love it. It's like the cargo pants, the 2 strands of hair that you pull out of your
oh my God, yeah, the
ponytail.
styling, the wardrobe and the hair and makeup is, like, too good. I did see, like, a screen cap of from season 2 of them designing, like, the bathing suits that they're in and, like, the mood board from, like it was, like, Adelia's catalog with, like, the handkerchief
Yes.
style tankini. I was like, "Oh my God, drag me." Like,
Yeah, so if
oh,
you were in middle school in, like, the year 2000, this is for you. So, anyway,
100%.
maybe next we'll come up with, like, a pop culture podcast.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Anyway,
But you have some exciting things happening before we get too far into TV land.
yeah, by this point, if you've been listening to all of our episodes, you all know that I was coming out with a new program, and I we put out a bonus episode where you got to listen to my workshop and listen to me talk about what it's all about. But if you missed that, it is a new membership program. It's called Superpower Your Natural Cycle, or Sync, abbreviated as Sync.
Okay, genius.
Actually, you know what? So I had been calling it Superpower Your Cycle, and I accidentally, like, typoed it into my calendar as sync, and I was like,
Oh
like, "Oh, I
my
need to change the
God.
title.
Superpower your natural cycle. I'm
Come
dead.
on." Yeah, so so it's a membership program helping you implement all of these things that we've been talking about, not just on the podcast, but all of the period related content that I've been putting out, helping you implement just aligning with your cycle so you can break free from the patriarchal standards of living that we've been talking about, reduce PMS symptoms, and just have an all like a better flow in life, pun intended.
Oh my God.
um, yeah, so we're starting on October 16th, and that is a new moon. So we're going to have a little new moon intention setting circle to kick it off. And yeah, it's going to be monthly, different themes every month that will help you implement this work. So it's not just like, here's what you do and good luck. There's different themes we'll talk
Good night and
about
good
every,
luck.
yeah. There's different themes that we'll talk about every month that will help you develop that body literacy that we talked about, strengthening your intuition, master classes, coaching sessions. Also, with each lunar phase, you'll get new recipes and self care practices recommended that correspond to the phases of your menstrual cycle as well. And a supportive little community that you can join to ask questions, share your experiences, make feminist friends, and hang out with me because I love you.
And she's the
so
best.
so that's the gist of it. If you want to learn more about it, you can go to goodwitchkitchen.net/membership. That's simple.
Ugh,
And yeah, that's all it is.
I'm so excited. It's going to be so amazing, you guys. Kristen has been working so hard on this, and the content she is putting in is like gold, pure gold. I mean, obviously, if she's as brilliant to come up with such a perfect name, then you know that the actual content of it is going to be incredible. So, 10 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah.
Can't wait to
So
hear more about it.
I hope you'll all join me. But yeah, so we're finally getting to the cosmic update. If you thank
Ugh,
you all for sticking with us for this fun banter.
yeah, we're
But
really in it today.
you know what? We need it. We need
Yeah.
some non-serious conversation. But
Yes.
yeah, moving into the cosmic update. What's going on this week, Janine?
Oh, goodness. We have a waning moon. So we get to the last quarter moon this Friday. So we're really like in this waning period for the whole week. And all that's coming to mind really is like shedding, shedding, shedding. So this is the time to say no, set boundaries, and just like make space for yourself to just be. You know, our moon is waning. We're in the waning moon of our year, as we talked about on the fall masterclass. Um, And so we just like don't have the same energy reserves that we're used to, and that's okay. You know, I think that what's really important in phases and periods of time like this is not to compare yourself to some sort of like expectation or ideal that's unrealistic, especially given the amount of stress, fear, anxiety that is swirling around all of us. So, you know, when I say don't compare yourself, I mean like to yourself 4 months ago, to yourself this time last year. Like, just be where you are. And releasing expectations, I think, is one of the maybe not easiest ways to make space because releasing expectations is hard work, but um,
Simple,
it,
not easy.
yes, simple. There we go. And the waning moon phase really reminds us like how important it is to refill our tanks in order to be the most effective agents of change that we can be. And as we'll be talking about today, we really need to see ourselves as change makers. So the more you can embrace this kind of watery internal period, the better suited you are for like long-term sustainable action. TBH.
Yeah. So with that said, do you have any practices that you like to do at this time to help you refill your tank?
Yeah, I mean, I actually read a lot. Like I read a lot of fiction. And so that's really important to me because it just like it keeps me busy enough that I'm not like checking my phone or doing anything else or I have to be present to enjoy it.
Mm,
Um it's kind of like the one thing that really forces me to be in a singular task. You know what I mean? Um taking baths, keeping my phone on airplane mode. Um you know, everything, taking a lot of walks, especially now that like we're really uh barreling down towards winter. I'm like, if it's like even a little bit nice outside, I try to get out as much as possible because
mm,
I'm like, we don't have much time left.
yeah,
What
same.
about you?
I have to tune in to how I'm feeling and figure out what the opposite is of that, kind of like we did in the self care for cycles episode. We
Mm.
talked about balancing out with different energies. Right now, as you all could probably tell at the top of the show, I'm a little burnt out on work since I'm in the middle of launching that new program. Um, Not that it's not super fun to do, I really do enjoy doing stuff like that, but also it's just been the only thing I've been focusing on. So I need a little bit more balance. So all of like the content that I've been taking in, I usually have like business and health podcasts that I'm listening to all the time. I read a ton of nonfiction. I almost never read fiction. So I have to balance that out now. So now I'm reading a good book, a good fiction book.
Nice.
I'm enjoying some trashy TV, like we've been talking about, more mindless podcasts, pop culture related stuff, um, just more fun things. Do you remember fun, Janine? Do you remember what that's like?
No.
Ugh, it'll come to you one day. But right
Yeah.
now, I need to stop thinking so hard when I don't have to because I'm thinking hard all day long.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
So it's also for seasonal stuff. It's also really cold and I hate it. Not today, but definitely like the last week or so and coming up, it's just gonna get worse. And I am opposed to the cold. I don't like feeling like the seasons betray me. So what feels nice and cozy and comforting to you? Because maybe I could use it to warm up to fall.
I don't know. Honestly, I've been on a bit of a soup kick.
Mm.
It always feels really good to me. There's something like very comforting, obviously, about like eating soup, like having, but also just like the process of making it. I don't know why. Maybe it's just like it's chopping, it's kind of like a lesson in patience, like finding depth as like things just like sit and get to know each other. This feels like a very important metaphor. Um, but yeah, that's just been really important. And also, I've just been like really prioritizing like softness and comfort and warmth, you know, like
Mm.
especially, I don't know, like I know it's kind of a no no, but I've been doing some work from bed wearing fuzzy slippers, lighting a cozy smelling candle. I'm just like, if it's gonna get cold, I want to like lean into creating like coziness where I can. Um, and there's just like so much about the world that feels uncomfortable right now. So like
Mm.
I'm just, yeah, any opportunity to add a layer of like softness around me is being taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, especially, in terms of like clothing, I definitely have been looking more towards comfortable and practical loungewear,
Mm,
like not, things that, because I mean, I have like old band t-shirts and like,
right.
which, Dan's probably sick of looking at me in like all these ripped t-shirts and stuff. I'm like, I need like nicer looking loungewear that I feel comfortable in, but that's also like practical and that I don't look like a total slob in.
Yeah, I definitely feel you on that.
Yeah. Um, and that way I can crawl into bed, feel like I look stylish, and also be warm and maybe do some work there while I'm at it.
Right.
Nothing wrong with working from bed sometimes.
Honestly, like that's just what has to happen right now. That's just where I'm at mentally, and that's fine.
Mm,
Accepting that
totally
is
fine.
part of the process.
I agree. Well, good tips. But you might want to invest in these little comforts because I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but Mercury retrograde is coming.
Ugh.
So Mercury retrograde shadow period starts soon or now. I don't what day is it? I don't know. But as a reminder, Mercury rules technology, communication, contracts, travel, commerce, and there's the 2 week shadow period before and after. So when disruptions can start to happen. But not if we prepare like good little Girl Scouts. Were you a Girl Scout?
I was not.
I was a
I
brownie.
tried to join the brownies and they like never called me back. Literally.
Really? What?
Yes. I like didn't do anything as a kid. Yeah, I
Um,
signed up for Girl Scouts. They like either didn't get in contact with me or my mom just like didn't actually want me to join, so she said she signed me up
mm.
and didn't. And then famously she was like, "Do you want to take dance lessons?" And I was like, no, I already know how to dance." Like, which is fucking hilarious. If you've ever seen me
Oh
dance, I
man.
do not. So yeah, no, I have no, I didn't go to camp. I'm just, it's why I give off only child vibes.
I did brownies and that was it. I don't know why I stopped. I don't remember. Maybe because they didn't give out like Mercury retrograde patches.
Yeah, what the hell? I think we should start our own little
Well, the Witch Scouts.
witch scouts. Oh my God, so cute.
Oh,
Yes.
I love it. But this is a great time as you're doing your monthly waning moon clear out stuff to find out where there are loose ends that need to be tied up, contracts that need to be signed, travel plans to solidify if my God, you're traveling right now. Good luck. Tech purchases to make, software updates to finally download. Stop clicking remind me tomorrow because you're never going to do it if you don't do it right now. So we always like to be
Tomorrow never
thoughtful.
comes.
Yeah. We always like to be thoughtful in our communication, but just another reminder these next few weeks, it'll be particularly important to double check everything numbers, emails, texts. Also, to check yourself before communicating and make sure that what you want to say is coming out the way you want it to be heard. And just
Mm,
remember that it's okay to pause and think before speaking. Yes.
what a nice reminder.
Yes. If you want more tips on preparing and surviving and thriving through Mercury retrograde, go back and listen to episode 4 where we did self care for Mercury retrograde. Lots of helpful tips there.
Yes, I could probably use a re-listen to that as well. So,
Yeah.
um, but speaking of Mercury retrograde, which we will be in for the next coming weeks, the other thing we are barreling towards is election day. We've got
Oh.
about 4 weeks.
Mm.
Yes, major sigh energy. um, And so we really wanted to focus this episode on how to create a sustainable political practice, both for the current moment and hopefully to continue past November. I think if this year, if these last 4 years, if this century has taught us anything, it's that, I don't, we just all need to be involved and we need to be involved regularly. We can't keep doing this kind of like start and stop, really intense sprints, it feels like,
Mm.
towards politicism and then getting complacent again and then waking up. It's not feeling good. And I don't think that we need to tell you that there's really no middle ground here. You're either taking action to make change, to see justice, to demand progress, or we're complicit in the status quo. So we're not going to try to convince you on why you should care about having a practice. Hopefully, if you've been listening to us, we've inspired you to create one. And today we're just talking about how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So, how in moments of overwhelm or fear or trauma or burnout can we make time to be politically engaged? That's what we'll talk about today.
Mhm.
And many of us have dealt with our fair share of guilt or paralysis in these moments that demand us to take action. We've experienced so much of that this year. And I like what you said about not doing that start and stop thing, because it does feel like when things happen, it feels so urgent to do something, but then when it's a little bit quieter, there that sense of urgency is gone and people just aren't thinking about these things.
Mhm.
So we would encourage you to start regularly thinking about the questions of where and how do I donate? Does my vote even matter? Why didn't I do anything sooner? What if this loses me friends or followers? How can I have conversations without hurting my relationships? So, these are worries that we have, and things that people often think about when it comes to doing this start and stop kind of thing. But I think answering these questions on your own and really thinking about what those answers mean to you can help you develop a more sustainable practice. Like, yes, your
Yeah.
vote matters. Why didn't you do anything sooner? Because you were complacent. And that's fine. That's fine that you realize that, and now you move on, rather
Yeah.
than feeling guilty or whatever. So,
Yeah. I think that that's what feels so. I mean, beyond the start and stop, it kind of feels like, you're getting like awoken with like somebody dumping ice water on your head. And then all of a
mm,
sudden you're like trying to run around. And like, I don't know why the image of like those cartoons where it's like you're running around, you just like straight up run into a door, or something. Like, it's just, it's not only not sustainable, it's like not helping, And I think that
mhm,
like as someone, I'll be totally honest, who's had her fair share of moments, even though I, try to be as engaged as I can be, it's like there are still moments where I have those feelings of guilt and I have those feelings of, complacency or just like shame around it, and it stops me from doing something. And like
mhm,
that's what I hope this conversation like gets people to understand, is like then next time something happens, it won't feel like you're being awoken by a, you know pitcher of ice water being thrown in your face. You'll be like, okay, I actually know where I can donate my time. I actually know like who I can talk to or what voices I need to hear or amplify right now. I know the number for my
yeah,
congressperson.
yeah.
Um,
And this reminds me of a conversation I had last week, where someone was interviewing me about my values and asking me, how we talked about how my values and my activism has evolved over time. And she asked me how I've been able to learn without being like defensive or combative, which is what can happen when you feel like you've run directly into a door, right?
sure.
Um, and I am not saying this I'm by no means perfect or anything, but just what I found works for me is like, one, all the things that we're going to talk about today, but two, just quietly observing, like having diverse voices in your feeds and seeking out information, constantly reading and being engaged. I found
Mhm.
that helped me feel less shame. So yeah, there's definitely moments where I'm reading something where, maybe they're talking about like, oh, people in wellness do this and it's racist or it's ableist or anything, anything that like makes you confront that in yourself. I have those moments where I'm like, oh shit. But instead of, immediately writing back to someone and telling people like, oh, I mean well, it's
Yeah.
just like, oh, now I know better and now I can change what I'm doing. And that's it. So I think just
Yeah.
observing and seeking out that information can be really helpful, but also building activism into your cyclical practice. So, what do we mean by cyclical activism, Janine?
So, what that kind of means to me, what cyclical activism means to me, is that you are setting up a practice of being politically involved that is ongoing and sustainable. So, in the same way that we use cycles to create supportive personal self care practices, we can use cycles to ensure that we're taking actions towards collective change in a way that we can sustain. So, if you're someone who's ever felt unsure or overwhelmed of how to get involved, this is a great place to start. And I think it really relates to kind of exactly what you were just saying, and really the overall argument that I would make around doing anything in a linear fashion versus a cyclical fashion is like in the moments that really call all of us to be, you know, there's too many to list even in the last few weeks of moments that have required us all to be in action. It's hard, like you said, to take new information or to absorb all these things that can be relatively confronting, can bring up a lot of emotions in us, and not only absorb that information, but then integrate it immediately and act accordingly. Like just juggling too much. So a cyclical practice is really building up that muscle and weaving an activist or a political practice into the everyday so that it normalizes it for you and you again just know what to do next.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, I am picturing like sort of an arc, um, like a character journey
Yeah.
of some sorts. And it is a cycle. I mean, you learn something, you implement it, and you continue to do the work. And it's like always at that point where you feel like, like I'm doing it. I feel really good about this. That you're confronted with something where you learn something else that you could be doing, and it's like, oh, now I'm starting. Oh, not that you're starting over, but you're it's a cycle. You're
Yeah.
starting at that beginning of process of implementing it again, and just you're continuously growing and evolving, and that's the purpose of all
Yes.
this.
And I think actually that just made me think of I recently watched a video. I don't know how everyone feels about Elizabeth Gilbert. I really like her
We talked
personally.
about her before.
Oh,
She just has
yeah.
the most soothing voice. I love her.
Yes. She has a super soothing voice. She did a video on Facebook. I'll find the link for it for the show notes. Um, about relying on her spiritual practice. And it really inspired me in general, but it also felt very accurate for the conversation we're having right now about building a political practice. We practice so that we are prepared for the moments that require us to be in the game.
Mm,
Like getting comfortable confronting hard conversations, being confronted with other opinions, being, debating, sharing our resources, all the things we're going to talk about, is doing that on a regular basis prepares us for the sprint of moments like an election,
mm.
And if we're not trained, if we haven't trained ourselves and built that muscle, it's very hard to just like wake up and go run a 5K, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that's where people can feel really complacent and start to shame themselves and feel bad and it's just like there's just no time for that.
Mhm. Mm. We
So
are running out of time. Clock's ticking, baby.
clock is ticking. So get over yourself. Me too. I've had to say that to myself many times. And let's
Hmm.
just fucking do this thing.
We are, yeah.
We
Oh
ride.
boy, we ride. We ride at dawn.
Yeah.
We're we're going to talk about activism in the context of the archetypes that we regularly bring into our conversation. So the elements, activism that aligns with earth, air, fire, water energies, to offer you ideas in areas that you resonate with most, and also, on this cyclical journey. So as we're in Libra season now, this sign happens to correspond to the Justice card in the tarot. So Janine, do you want to share a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, Libra rules justice, which is the 11th card in the major arcana. It's really the time where we're being asked to examine what we think is fair, hold ourselves and others accountable, and recalibrate towards truth. I think I like to think of this card as like a reminder that it's never too late to do the right thing. And the only wrong choice that we can make is refusing to take action. Like, there's always process, there's always progress that's available to us. We just have to sometimes make the difficult decision to like do the damn thing. And the other piece of this card that I feel is really important, and I come back to a lot personally, is that in order to make change, we first have to accept reality. So, like, before we can make that meaningful progress, we have to get very, very honest about what is happening. So, confronting information that may make us uncomfortable, that may, you know, that we are, if we are in a position of privilege, maybe we don't have to confront. It's not our reality, but we're making the choice to be honest and get really clear on what's happening and why and how we can help, how we feel about that reality and what we want to be moving towards. So, in some ways, I think about it as like getting a clear read or like aiming the arrow before we're taking action, um, sort of zooming out in a way. And I just think that there's a lot of impact in this card, obviously. Um, and it also like asks us to approach making an impact in a measured and intentional way, which again, like feels very appropriate for this time. Like, we can't just continue to be panic responding. We need to be like really in, or I guess panic reacting, finding a way to be intentionally responsive, and sort of directing the way that we're moving rather than, you know, feeling like we're just getting bashed around by the tides.
I think measured and intentional are like the key words of this time.
Yes.
So on top of Mercury being in retrograde, the planet, the planet that rules our communication, we also have Mars, which is a planet governing action, and that's in retrograde too. So while we're familiar with what we have to do during Mercury retrograde, being more careful about our choice of words and how we're communicating, Mars in retrograde asks us to be more thoughtful and measured in our actions too. So all of this is really the perfect combination to light a fire under your ass, get moving, get political, and to embody your values more deeply. So we look at this in 4 steps. It can, you can start from the beginning or wherever you are in your activism journey. Choose an element based on what you feel is needed in in your personal practice or what's needed in your community. And we will start with Earth.
Yes, step one. We always start with Earth, right? So, this is where we're getting grounded and we're making our plan. So, if you haven't already, check your voter registration and make sure you're actually registered, especially if you moved recently, if you've gotten married, if you've changed your name, if you haven't voted in a while. And even if you have, just always nice to double check, right? Who doesn't like to be prepared? Check your polling place as well. So if you forgot to update your registration to a new address, you can make plans to go to the right location on election day. Also, like occasionally I had this happen to me when I was voting once in college, like my polling location had moved. So it's just
Mm.
get all your information, make sure you have a plan. Same thing with like when are you voting on voting day, like how, especially this year. Um, when you can do all of this, obviously, at vote.org, which will help you set up election reminders. And you can also apply to be a poll worker, which, if you are healthy and able, is a huge way to contribute to fair um, elections and also safe elections, which obviously are under attack this year. So whether it's related to an election or not, getting clear again, like we were just talking about, on the reality of a situation that you're advocating for or against. So, we often forget that, or not, I shouldn't say all of us do this, but I've definitely been guilty of it, of like getting really amped up about like one particular race that's happening, whether it's presidential or maybe there's like a Senate seat I'm voting for, or, a provision or something like that. And then I get to the ballot box and there's like other people and other questions and things that I
Yes.
have truly no idea what I'm doing. Like, that is a
We've
really
been
bad
there.
feeling.
Hmm. Yes,
So,
that's happened to me too, and I'm like, shit.
yeah. And it's like, I think that that's just a very, very real thing. And I think, there's been a lot of positions in power that have come to not like come to light, but like that it's like, hey, reminder, you often vote for like county sheriffs and judges and things like that. So like getting really clear on those records, it does take time, but setting the intention and really understanding your values, what kind of impact you want to make, what changes do you want to see, that's where you can focus and that's where you can start to not even do the research necessarily at this stage, but just kind of getting clear on like your beliefs
Hmm.
and the kinds, the positions that you're actually casting a vote for is super, super important. It feels like high school government class, but you know what? I could really use a refresher in that regard personally. So
Yeah,
let's all do it together.
and change starts locally. Local elections are still so important because these people, like these are the people who in normal times rise to the ranks of, presidential candidate when normal people run for office. So,
Yeah,
it's really important to know who is running your town. So, yeah, that's a good tip. The
totally.
next step is we're moving into air. So, looking up those races in your district, in your county, do your research, figuring out who's running for office locally, reading up on their stances, not just on the issues that are important to you personally, but to the people in your community too. So, this is a time to be gathering all the information. And a good way to do this, as much as I hate Facebook, is looking in local neighborhood groups. It can be a really great place to find conversations about issues that are affecting your area and how everyone's feeling about them. And not that you should base your stances on other people's opinions, but to get the general sentiment for especially for things that you aren't experiencing personally. Like as an example, for me, I don't have kids. So like local school stuff, education stuff, I don't know anything about that. So it's helpful for me to see the parents in my neighborhood talk about those kinds of topics and understand how people are feeling, how the issues are affecting them. So that's just an example, but it's a good place to find that information. And as well as that, diversify your feeds like I was talking about, and get people or learn from people who have different life situations as you, and learn about the challenges that people in your community are facing. It's also a great time to protest, to make calls, to write to your representatives, go to a city hall meeting, or attend one on Zoom. So you don't have to sit there for several hours. You can just, eat your snacks and wait for your turn.
Mhm.
But also, and a very easy way to do any of this, or to contact your representatives, is ResistBot. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
It's a really great tool that makes it super easy to contact your elected officials. All you do is text the word resist to 50409, 50409, and it delivers your messages to representatives in your area, to Congress, to senators, to the DNC. it it'll respond back asking for your location, and then it'll automatically find who represents you. So if time is an issue for doing any of this, this literally takes less than 2 minutes. So no
Yeah.
excuse. Do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw something recently too about like, um, if you're someone who's like nervous on the phone or any of those things, like there's so many amazing places you can find kind of like scripts if you're calling your representatives about an
Hmm.
issue, or, if you call on nights and weekends, you're just going to get the answering machine, which is like okay if you're feeling a little bit nervous about talking to someone. Keep in mind, this isn't going to be, when you make those calls, you're not going to get into a policy debate with anyone. They're really just recording what you have to say. So making sure your voice is heard is really, really powerful. Calling is great, emailing is amazing, writing is, as if we can do all of those things, great. But find a method that works for you and just make it a practice. Like it is my dream that it's somewhere at my congressperson's office they're like, oh my god, it's her again. Like I would be happy to be the person who's like, hello. it's my weekly call, like, just being like, I'm watching, I think it's
Hmm.
important. So, and I love that ResistBot makes that so easy for people. If, again, if you're just dipping a toe in, it's really important. It can really, really make a difference. We've seen that numerous times over the past few years. So, third, we're moving into our fire energy. This is where we're really taking action and really seeing building momentum, particularly in community. And so I always like to think of this as opportunity to like deepen your practice, volunteering your time, organizing for a cause, contacting your reps about, like, obviously right now there's the Supreme Court decision where we're recording this at the end of September. So by the time this episode is released, who knows where we'll be at with filling RBG's seat. But, you know, I just think that there's a lot of ways to really like to be phone banking, to create a group maybe within your friend circle or with your family members that's like all volunteering and kind of magnifying your efforts towards one, either organization or cause or candidate that you really believe in. You can canvas for a candidate, you can phone bank. If you don't feel safe going door to door right now, phone banks are always looking for volunteers, and you can even text for campaigns now, which I think Kristen did earlier this year, if that's right.
I did. It was a very interesting experience. It was nice to be able to reach out to people and have good conversations, but then of course I was texting for Warren, so you can imagine the vitriol that I
Yes,
received when I got the wrong type of person. So
sure.
yeah, it was, I mean, a lot of it was amusing because, like, the things people will say to a random stranger are very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, but for the most part, it was a good experience. It was nice to have conversations with people who were really actually open to talking about these things. So for me, I am not a phone person. This, like, talking on this podcast is like the most talking I do all day. So texting or, the written word is my preferred mode of communication. So that was a really interesting and easy way for me to help out and really try to
Yeah.
make a difference.
I think that's super important. And same thing, like being able to really commit like larger chunks of time, I think is really important in a fire phase. It's like, again, deepening the practice and getting out really into the community. So when we think about fire, we think about like our relationship with other people. So whether that's like you connecting with other voters, or people in your community, or again like enlisting your friends and families, it really magnifies that effort. Like fire spreads easily, so make it your mission to have those conversations, to kind of light a fire under your own ass, under the asses of others. That's my political slogan: light a fire
Yeah.
under the asses of others. But I
Take it
think
a
that,
tote.
yeah, just having that kind of thing again, that's like you're building an ongoing relationship. So it's not something that has to be like new every single time necessarily, but building, some kind of system where, again, you're regularly donating time or, um, your talents really to community efforts, I think is very powerful and really, really impactful.
Hmm. Yeah, and then water we have, which is really also very impactful, is, flow of resources, donations,
Yes.
community care. Think about where you can donate. Election campaigns, especially local organizations that are lobbying for policy changes in areas that are important to you and your community. Bail funds for the continued protests that are still going on daily in this country. There's lots of places where your money can be very beneficial. And if not financially, if that's just not possible for you right now, think about where else are you well resourced. So if it's time, go back to volunteering, or maybe you can even drive people to their polling place on election day. There's lots of different ways that you can spend your time to help
Mm.
people. And maybe you're well resourced in community. So, how can you share this message that you're advocating for? Can you share information with the people you know? Can you elevate the voices of people who are more or deeper in the work? Can you make space on your blog or your social media or your podcast or wherever you have a
Mhm.
voice to spread the word? Can you start a fundraiser? You want to do a bake sale to raise money for a certain cause? So there's ways that you can enlist your community there. If you are well resourced in terms of supplies, or you are gathering supplies for people, you can support protesters and others who are working on the ground by gathering these kinds of things. Collect and distribute things from, like, collect from your neighbors and distribute things like phone chargers, bottled water, snacks, first aid kits, and other helpful items. I know that at the protest that we went to earlier this year, there were people just on the sidewalks handing out these kinds of things, and I thought that was a
Yeah.
really nice way, especially if you are someone who can't do protests, or are nervous about health or other risks going to a protest. And it's not for everyone, but if you can help in any way, like offering these kinds of things to people who are going out on the ground, that can be really helpful. And then finally, if you're well resourced with knowledge, have important conversations with the people in your circle. Try not to get in too many fights on Facebook. I have tried to take my attention away from there because it is a breeding ground for really, really interesting fights with some people from my hometown. But anyway,
Sure.
also call out injustice when you see it. That is something that you can do regularly outside of elections. Anytime that you see something that just isn't right, it is important to call it out and normalize calling out things like that, where you know people are getting too comfortable in doing things and saying things and loudly standing for things that are just objectively wrong. So, calling
Mm.
out injustice when you see it is an important water energy practice.
Yes, definitely. Um, I also, just before we wrap up, want to mention that Witch the Vote did an awesome episode on the astro weather of election day.
Yeah.
There was, it was before the primaries and things like that, so there's a lot of information in there about like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, but also Joe Biden, and really about his chart. So he's got a lot of Scorpio energy, Scorpio Sun, Venus, Mercury, Mars, empathic, caring. Like, there's just some really interesting information about his chart, about Trump's chart, about the astro weather that's happening on election day. It doesn't feel super scary. I know that sometimes people can feel a little bit intimidated by thinking about, like, oh my God, it's like against us, like Mercury, like kind of the way we feel about Mercury retrograde sometimes.
Hmm.
But if anyone wants to kind of get the energetics of election day, or is interested in learning that, I would totally recommend listening to that episode. We'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah,
Um,
that was a good one.
so good. I need to like give it another listen just because I feel like Erica, Paige, and Grace, who's the guest, is just like it's comforting to me. I'm like, okay, witches are the future. Okay, okay. I just have to shout that at my own reflection like 5 times a day, but no big deal.
Yeah. Well, so Mercury retrograde ends, I think, the day before, right?
Yes,
So, I
yes,
mean, there's still that shadow period afterwards, but it's still it doesn't need to be scary. I mean, it is a scary time, but it
yeah.
doesn't need to be scary. It's more just making sure that we're being thoughtful, measured, and intentional, like we said.
Measured and intentional. Yeah,
Yes.
making sure you fill out your ballot properly. Like, again, depending on where you live, if you're concerned about voting by mail or if you don't feel safe voting in person, check your area. There's going to be drop boxes. There's like everything, depending on where you're listening, is different in different states, counties, etc. But like, there's a lot of information that you can arm yourself with to make sure that your vote is counted. There should be, locations where you can drop your mail in ballot and it skips the postal service entirely. It's delivered to the city directly. Like, we have options and we need to ensure that we're not feeling complacent or overwhelmed by information. All you got to do is figure out your plan and stick to it. No big deal. We got
Yeah,
this.
you got this.
You got this. We got this. We've all got this.
Oh, well,
4 weeks, y'all.
yeah, we hope this has been inspiring to you to develop a cyclical activism practice. I know we talk about these things pretty regularly on the show. So as you keep up with us, I hope that um, it's just something that is part of your regular day, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like before we started today's podcast, I like went on, donated to the Louisville bail funds,
Hmm.
and just like trying to a little one or two things a day. Make a call, send an email, look up one ballot race, like have one conversation. It doesn't it feels small when the impact feels like we have so far to go, like it can feel really disheartening, but the best way to get through that is to just know that you're, like we said at the top, doing your best, you know?
Yeah, and if you're doing one little thing every day you commit to it, you know, a year later you've done 365 little things, and that's so much more than if you had just been paralyzed without, not doing anything. So
Yeah.
every little bit counts.
Yes.
If you need help figuring out anything, there's vote.org, Vote Save America. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of different resources, but if you are in desperate need for our help, you can always email us. We will help
Yeah.
you vote. But yeah, so
Yes.
if you liked what you heard today, if you have any questions, comments, anything else, you can always reach out to us at it's just a phase at wait, no, it's just a phase pod at gmail.com. What's our email? It's just a phase pod at gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram at it's just a phase pod. And if you really enjoyed the show, we'd love for you to leave a review on iTunes. It helps amazing, active, civically engaged, lovely, wonderful people like you find our show. So onwards. we will see
Onwards.
you. We will see you next week.
See you then.
Bye.